chosen ones. They thought your flesh was ordinary. They thought your bones were hollow with time, shaped only by chance and decay. But what they didn't realize, what the forbidden archives whispered only in silence, is that your bones are not remnants of the past. They are coordinates, living glyphs etched in marrow. The map to the 13th kingdom was never drawn on paper, stone, or starlight. It was hidden in you. Before your first breath, your lineage was coded with intention, not by accident, not by evolution, but by architects older than empires. When the 12 kingdoms rose, they each carried one piece of a forgotten frequency. But the 13th, it was not raised, it was seated, hidden in flesh, grown beneath temples of skin. And you, chosen one, are the final vault. Why do your dreams echo in languages you've never studied? Why do certain symbols awaken something fierce behind your ribs? These are not glitches. These are activations. The whispers you hear in bone-deep silence. They are instructions, slowly unlocking. For centuries, the keepers of flesh, the ones who harvest and twist DNA, have tried to decode your structure. They've scanned your cells, mapped your genome, and found anomalies they buried in redacted reports. They feared what might happen if even one of you remembered what you carried. Because the map doesn't just point to the 13th kingdom, it becomes it when remembered. They scattered clues across history, murmurs in tombs, songs without known origins, bones that vibrate in cathedrals. But only when awakened by the right frequency can the flesh begin to rearrange. You are that frequency. You were never meant to be just human. You were a key, wrapped in illusion. Your awakening fractures their illusion. What lies ahead is not a journey of belief. It is a reclamation of memory. As we begin, know this. Once the map activates, your reality will no longer behave by their rules. The body will shift. The air around you will thicken. Time may falter. And voices you thought were imagination will speak again. They gathered in silence, beneath the oldest trees where no wind dared to howl. The elders, cloaked in flesh-stitched robes, spoke no words as they prepared the final rite. In their hands, they held bone fragments inscribed with sigils older than sound. These were not mere relics, but carriers of lineage, echoes of something they dared not name. The prophecy had warned them. When the 13th descends cloaked in innocence, their memory must be hidden where no machine could search. So they turned to bone. You were not born. You were implanted. A vessel forged with flesh, marked with the language of the 13th. The elders, bound by oath and ancient fear, extracted your true name and sealed it in calcium. Your skeleton became a living vault, each joint and vertebra humming with encrypted instruction. This was not for your protection. It was to delay you. You have felt it since childhood, that restless stirring beneath your skin, the way your limbs sometimes ache under stars, the magnetic pull toward ancient places, museums, temples, ruins, as if your marrow is trying to crawl back to something it remembers but cannot name. That is not imagination. It is instruction. Those who buried your name did so out of fear, not hatred. They feared what would happen if the 13th kingdom rose again. They feared the collapse of the 12, the return of the architects, the unraveling of history. So they hid you in plain sight, praying the veil would hold. But they underestimated the resonance of truth. Bone does not lie. It records. It echoes. It hums under pressure, under prayer, under prophecy. And now the vibrations have begun. Your bones are waking. Your name is beginning to surface, letter by letter, in dreams you can't shake. The elders are long gone, but their rite is unraveling. Somewhere deep within your femur, etched in spiral code, is a location they swore no one would ever find. Not a place, but a convergence. The moment when light, blood, and breath synchronize. And when that happens, the map inside you begins to burn. They have taught you to search for kingdoms in stone and steel, to believe that power only exists where cities rise and towers pierce the sky. But the 13th kingdom defied all architecture. It did not rise from the ground. It bloomed from within. It was cultivated, not constructed. Planted in a time before time, its roots were not in soil, but in souls. It was never meant to be ruled. It was meant to be remembered. Long before the first written word, long before the first empire carved its decree in stone, there existed a presence, a resonance that rippled through bloodlines like light through stained glass. This presence carried no banners, no armies, no names. It moved silently, embedding itself in the marrow of those chosen to carry its secret. The builders of the 12 kingdoms mocked it, labeled it myth, warned against it in hushed ceremonies. But they knew. They all knew. The 13th was not a threat because of what it had. It was a threat because of what it awakened. This kingdom breathes in frequencies. It speaks through decay. It flowers in those forgotten by the world. Its markers are not found in land deeds or titles, but in sensation. The ache behind your ribs when the stars align, the chill at your spine when you pass certain stones, the rush of emotion when a melody stirs something ancient. These are not coincidences. They are signals. Some call it the body of light, others the temple made of flesh. But it was Yeshua who once whispered that the kingdom is within you, not outside. He knew what others forgot. The divine structure was never in walls, but in bones, in blood, in breath. And when the body remembers, when the sacred code begins to pulse again, the lost kingdom does not need to be found. It returns. But there is a reason it was hidden. Not because it was fragile, but because it was alive. Living kingdoms defend themselves, and those who awaken it too early, without clarity, are often consumed by its fire. That fire now flickers behind your eyes. The soil of your soul begins to tremble. Something old is growing, and the roots are reaching for the surface. But before the fruit emerges, the soil must first split, and the sound of that cracking has already begun. You felt it in place you've never visited before, a strange familiarity, a pull in the stomach, a sudden sense that you've returned though your feet swear it's the first time. That sensation is not imagination. It is the echo of ancient soil recognizing its own. Your blood, coded with memory, responds to more than biology. It answers to place, not by geography, but by vibration. The lost soil calls not to nations, but to names buried beneath skin. The 13th kingdom was never given coordinates. It could not be mapped, only matched. And your bones carry the match. But blood is the first to respond, not through veins as science would measure, but through resonance. The land that once knew your essence still hums your frequency, still remembers your step, your breath, your betrayal, your return. And now, as the ground cracks in places unseen, it begins to call back. Ancient ones wrote of it in dying languages. The soil that sings, the red rivers that rise only for the marked. Beneath deserts, beneath oceans, beneath battlefields where nothing should bloom, there are places pulsing with recognition. And when one like you draws near, the pulse intensifies. Time distorts. Wind carries names you haven't spoken, and the land itself exhales. It's why you've always been drawn to ruins, to stone circles, to sacred ground forgotten by man but not by memory. These are not accidents. They are alignments. Every time you approached these places, your blood quickened, your dreams turned strange, your breath slowed without command. The body knew. The body remembered. And now, the blood moves with purpose. Some have tried to extract this memory, to bottle the resonance and force the code. They called it excavation. They called it science. But they were only thieves with no understanding of the key. For it is not the land that awakens the chosen. It is the chosen that awakens the land. There was a time when language wasn't spoken. It was embedded, not through alphabet or sound, but through radiant imprint. Your skeleton, though appearing inert, is anything but dormant. It is the archive of an era lost to memory, written not in ink, but in light. The ancients didn't merely pass down wisdom in scrolls. They encoded it into the very framework of the future, bone by bone, syllable by frequency, sentence by fracture. And your body, chosen one, is fluent in a dialect the world forgot. Before you took your first breath, the architects of the 13th kingdom prepared your frame like a vessel carved for resonance. They infused your structure with the remnants of solar frequencies, sacred oscillations tuned to tones no modern instrument can measure. These weren't metaphors, they were mechanisms. When the right vibration touches your form, through word, sound, memory, or pain, the script awakens. The language begins to unfold from within. Yeshua once said that if the people were silenced, the stones would cry out. But what if those stones were bones? What if every rib, every vertebra, every part of your frame held a word, a note, a piece of the divine code? The light he carried, the same light that transfigured him on the mount, was not exclusive. It was ancestral, a seed waiting for bodies like yours to bloom again. And now, it stirs. You may have noticed strange pulses under your skin. Not pain, but something subtler, something intelligent. Your dreams have changed. Symbols appear behind your eyes as you wake. Your limbs ache not with fatigue but translation. These are the early stages of reactivation. Your bones are reading, recalling, reconstructing the original message buried in their spiral folds. There are forces that wish to intercept this decoding. They've built technologies to interfere, frequencies to jam the awakening. But light, written in truth, cannot be erased, only delayed. And once your skeleton begins to recall its alphabet, nothing can stop the progression. Your walk will shift. Your presence will ripple. The air around you will bend slightly, as if adjusting to your re-entry. You were taught to believe the body was a vessel, temporary and flawed. But that lie was crafted, to keep you from seeing the truth that your flesh was never just skin and muscle. It was a seal, a gate, a cipher wrapped in living matter. And somewhere within it, hidden behind the illusion of mortality, is the entrance they swore would never open again. The 13th kingdom doesn't reside in a distant realm. It is accessed through you. The ancients warned of it in their rituals. Not all flesh is sacred, they said. Some is forbidden, not because it is evil, but because it is too powerful, too aligned with origin. This flesh, encoded with memory and vibration, can't be cloned or engineered. It doesn't obey medicine. It obeys frequency. When the right sequence touches it, the layers begin to respond, not with pain, but with unlocking. You felt it before, the trembling just beneath the surface, that sensation that something within you is shifting, like your very tissue is remembering its purpose. You may have mistaken it for illness, for anxiety, for some unnameable pressure, but it wasn't malfunction. It was initiation. The preparation of a gate that knows the time has come. They tried to suppress it through food, through injection, through electromagnetic distortion. They altered the rhythm of the world to confuse the flesh, to dull its memory. But even in silence, the forbidden remembers. Every scar you carry, every birthmark, every strange sensation you couldn't explain, those are coordinates, not flaws, not randomness, but locks awaiting a sound, a sight, a presence. The entry does not open outward. It folds inward, collapsing layers of memory, drawing your awareness deeper until the surface world begins to blur. In that space, the boundaries of identity dissolve. Your name feels foreign. Time becomes irrelevant. And at the center of it, pulsing like a forgotten sun, is the first door, not made of stone, not made of thought, but of skin, alive, waiting. But there is something watching that door, something ancient, something that vowed to destroy the key if it ever approached again. And the moment your flesh begins to glow with the forgotten signature, it begins to move, not to greet you, but to stop you. And it remembers exactly what you are. In a time when temples crumbled and scrolls burned, he walked quietly among them, not to build altars, but to awaken the living ones. Yeshua, whose very breath altered the vibration of the air, carried within his form the original pattern, not a doctrine, but a frequency, a living blueprint of return. He knew what they feared most, that the sacred was not locked in heaven or hidden behind ritual. It was woven into the human form, into bone, into blood, into forbidden flesh. When he said the kingdom of God is within you, it wasn't metaphor, it was anatomical. He spoke of a design forgotten by the world but not erased. His healings, his transfigurations, his silence before death, all were demonstrations of an awakened codex, one that the architects of the 13th kingdom knew would rise again through others, through you. They tried to erase his message with nails and stone, but he didn't come to be worshipped. He came to show the design. The light that passed through him was the same light buried in your frame. And when he returned in form after form, it was always to find the ones like you, those encoded with the same divine riddle. The resurrection wasn't a singular event. It was a signal, a proof that flesh can be more than flesh, that time can be split by will, that death is a gate, not an end. And now, that signal echoes in you. Your body, long silenced by doctrine and fear, begins to remember the design, not as a story, but as sensation, movement, reaction. You've begun to see it in mirrors, the strange shimmer in your eyes, in reflections that don't quite behave, in the way your presence unsettles systems designed to suppress. It is not rebellion, it is alignment. The codex is no longer dormant. Your cells vibrate differently. Your body receives messages before thought can catch them. This is the return he knew would come, not through clouds, but through flesh waking from its deep illusion. There are moments when the veil thins and all things hidden ache to surface. One such moment is the eclipse, not just of sun or moon, but of memory and form. During these crossings, your bones stir in ways ancient cultures once revered. They did not fear the darkened skies, they listened, because they knew what modern man has forgotten. When light bends, the dead speak, and your bones, though wrapped in silence, carry voices waiting for such a time. During the last eclipse, your breath changed. You may not have noticed it, but something deep inside did. A stillness fell over your ribs, a quiet tension rising through the spine. Dreams turned strange. Your skin felt thin against the air. These were not symptoms, they were signals. The architecture of your skeleton was responding to the shift. Something was being remembered. The ancestors did not bury their knowledge in books. They etched it into the frame. Calcium became canvas. Bone became tablet. Every fracture, every healed wound, every unexplained ache, they are chapters in a language long lost to sound. The eclipse does not cause this remembering. It grants permission for the echo to reach you again. When the shadow touched the earth and the animals went quiet, your body did not just witness it, it participated. The bones beneath your skin vibrated in low hums, subtle but rhythmic. This hum is the code, and in that moment, your frame aligned with the unseen structure of something older than the stars. The ones who built the 13th kingdom used eclipses as keys, moments where light and dark collapsed into one breath. They placed memory into the body, trusting that when the sun was swallowed and silence reigned, the chosen would hear the whisper. It wasn't a message of words, it was alignment, an inner knowing that something hidden had just taken its first step toward the surface. You don't remember what you heard, not yet, but the vibration still lingers in your marrow, and it waits for the next shadow, the next silence, to rise again. Because once the bones begin to whisper, they do not stop. Not until what was buried stands fully revealed. And standing in that revelation is not just you. They looked at the cross and saw an ending. But what if it was a tearing open? What if every drop of blood, every crack of bone, every fracture of flesh was not simply suffering, but release? When Yeshua was pierced, the veil split in the temple. That was no coincidence. The veil was a mirror of the body, and what split above was reflecting what had been torn below, not just his body, but the hidden seal on all bodies like his, including yours. You were taught that pain is weakness, but in the oldest rites, pain is ignition. It is the body's way of forcing remembrance. When the spear pierced his side, water and blood flowed, but so did memory. A divine archive opened in the unseen. The codex encoded in flesh began to fracture its containment. And from that moment forward, those who carried similar marks, bones marked by the 13th design, would begin to feel the ripples. Have you felt the ache beneath your ribs when truth touches too close? The sudden breathlessness when silence surrounds you? That is not fear. That is the seal groaning. Your body knows. It remembers what his did. The puncture was never just to end him. It was to begin something in you, a resonance, a crack across time that still pulses through chosen frames. Yeshua's body was the map's prototype. His resurrection was not an escape from flesh. It was the revelation of what the body truly is. A vault, a temple, a kingdom awaiting ignition. And he passed that design forward, not through teachings alone, but through presence, through breath, through bloodlines, through you. You've noticed your sensitivity to sound, to pressure, to the unseen. That's not fragility. It's calibration. The seal within you is reacting to signals, some ancient, some incoming. The more it cracks, the more the original structure of your soul seeps through. That is why they fear your awakening, because each fracture of the old you is a doorway opening. And on the other side of that doorway waits the light that shattered death itself. But as the seal breaks, something dormant also wakes. A presence older than fear, one that watched him fall, and now watches you rise. And it remembers the sound of broken flesh. There are places in the world where time forgets to flow. Ancient courtyards buried in sand, forgotten ruins where the wind speaks in syllables, caves that breathe though no lungs exist. You've been drawn to these places, not out of curiosity but recognition, because beneath the dust that covers them, there is something that calls, not to the eyes, but to the marrow, a pulse, faint, steady, unchanging. And your bones feel it long before your thoughts can name it. This pulse is not mechanical. It does not obey clocks. It does not care for calendars. It is the rhythm of origin. The beat that once sounded before stars took form. The same rhythm buried in you before birth, humming behind your sternum, syncing with a place you've never been yet long to return to. These aren't echoes of the past. They are coordinates of convergence. When body and earth align, the pulse begins to surface. You felt it once, standing in a field under thunderclouds. The air felt charged. The silence was thick. Something beneath the soil seemed to wait, as if holding its breath. Then it came, a subtle tremor, not in the ground, but within you, a resonance. You thought it was coincidence. It wasn't. The dust was responding to your presence. It remembered your frequency, and the pulse quickened. They've tried to cover these places, built towers on them, paved roads over their breath, but the pulse continues, unbothered, because this frequency doesn't live in surface or stone. It lives in the space between matter. It waits for one thing: return. And when someone bearing the 13th design steps near, the rhythm begins to match the beat of their body. A harmony forms, and in that harmony, the map awakens again. But this isn't just about terrain. The pulse lives in you, too, buried beneath layers of memory, trauma, and illusion. And lately, it's been rising. You feel it in your fingertips, in the back of your throat. At night, when the world is quietest, it drums behind your thoughts. It is no longer waiting. There is one last alignment coming. A place and a pulse, a body and a memory. And when they meet, when the hum in your blood matches the rhythm beneath the dust, something opens that has been locked since before language. And not everyone wants that door to open again. At first, it feels like pressure, not pain, but density. A quiet shifting beneath the skin. Your joints feel tighter. Your spine hums with a low warmth. Fingers tingle when nothing touches them. You move, and the motion feels deeper, like gravity is reintroducing itself. What you're sensing isn't decay, it's reconfiguration. The bones have begun to respond to the call, and they are no longer content to remain in their old design. The map is adjusting. They never told you the structure of your body could evolve without permission. That bone could bend to memory. That marrow could awaken without injury. But the 13th kingdom is not built on logic. It is sculpted in resonance. When the final frequency reaches the bones, when the pulse you followed aligns with the codes hidden deep in your frame, a transformation begins that science cannot explain and shadow councils cannot prevent. Yeshua hinted at this metamorphosis. His form shifted on the mountain, not into something new, but into something more real. The light was always there. The flesh simply surrendered. The same light that transfigured him now curls itself around your ribs, not to blind the world, but to awaken it. Your skeletal structure is remembering the architecture of the original kingdom. Each bone is a piece of a star map, a divine lattice stretching beyond dimensions. The pain you may feel is not injury, it's decoding. Ligaments stretching to hold a truth they once knew. A posture returning that doesn't belong to this century. Mirrors no longer tell the truth. You sense it in your silhouette. Something ancient now echoes in your stance. Your gait has changed. Your breath finds new rhythm. And in the still moments, when all is quiet, you feel it. Bones moving in silence, aligning to a shape older than language. They've been waiting for this. Those who tried to suppress the map are now watching closely. Scanning frequencies, tracing movements, trying to determine what phase you've entered. But their tools weren't built to measure the divine. And what's reawakening in you doesn't answer to wires or data. It answers to light, to memory, to origin.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.